You kept telling yourself that pain meant progress, that exhaustion was proof you were still alive, that if you just kept moving, one more night, one more task, one more sacrifice, something would finally click. But it never did it? The finish line keeps moving. The light at the end of the tunnel keeps dimming, and still you wake up and perform the ritual. Eyes open, soul muted, convincing yourself that perseverance is strength. But what if perseverance is the very thing destroying you? What if your exhaustion isn't a symptom of weakness, but your mind's last attempt to warn you? You're not broken, you're just becoming fluent in numbness. You've learned how to function without feeling, how to exist without inhabiting. And in this strange perfection, productive, responsible, composed, you've amputated the part of you that once knew how to feel alive. This isn't resilience. It's quiet self-destruction disguised as discipline. And if you keep mistaking pain for purpose, the tunnel won't lead you anywhere. Because there is no light waiting at the end, only the one you've been too exhausted to hold. High-functioning depression isn't always visible. It wears a clean shirt, meets deadlines, and answers messages with, "I'm fine." It pays the bills. It takes care of others. It even smiles sometimes, not because it's happy, but because the performance must go on. This is what it means to be collapsing efficiently. You don't lose control, you lose connection. You keep running the same program even after the meaning has crashed. Your days are full, but your inner world feels vacant, like the stage lights are still on, but the actors left long ago. This isn't laziness, it's adaptation. Your mind learned to survive by muting what hurt, and your body learned to obey. That's why you can't just rest your way out of it. The exhaustion isn't in your muscles, it's in your identity. Most people think healing means slowing down. But what if slowing down just makes you face the emptiness you've been avoiding? What if the problem isn't the pace, but the direction? You've spent years trying to fix a life that only exists on autopilot, optimizing habits, chasing purpose, keeping yourself one step ahead of collapse. But meaning doesn't return through control. It returns through contact, through learning how to inhabit yourself again. This isn't about quitting your job or disappearing. It's about understanding why you've mistaken motion for life, because until you do, you'll keep moving and never arrive. You wake up and the first thing you feel is obligation. The list begins before consciousness fully loads. Tasks, deadlines, messages, faces. You stand, dress, and perform the sequence you built to keep life from collapsing, except it already has, invisibly. High-functioning collapse doesn't scream. It organizes, it plans, it smiles on cue. You execute responsibilities with surgical precision, and yet every gesture feels slightly detached, as if your body were a stand-in rehearsing your part. People call you disciplined. They're wrong. You're simply afraid that if you ever stop, the silence will swallow you whole. You are not lazy. You are surviving through automation. Your nervous system has learned efficiency as armor. Keep the emails answered, keep the bills paid, keep breathing through the static. And because everything looks stable, no one suspects the fracture forming beneath. This is the paradox. The better you function, the less anyone notices you're falling. You've mistaken composure for health, productivity for purpose. But stability built on suppression is just stillness under tension. It doesn't heal, it hides. There's a reason the emptiness feels so precise. It's been engineered by repetition. Every day you perform the same loop, hoping it will fix itself. Yet each repetition tightens the knot. You don't need more endurance. You need awareness. Because what's failing isn't your schedule. It's your sense of being inside it. And until you understand that, no success will feel safe. At some point, strength stopped being a choice and became your only language. You learned early that the world rewards the dependable, the one who never flinches, the one who keeps everyone else safe. So you built yourself into that person, reliable, controlled, impenetrable. And it worked, until it didn't. Now, every time you want to rest, something inside whispers, "Don't you dare." Every time you feel the weight of your own exhaustion, a voice replies, "You can't afford weakness." You've internalized an entire audience, expectations, obligations, ghosts of admiration, and they never stop watching. This isn't pride, it's protection. The mask of strength was forged from fear, fear of being dismissed, replaced, pitied. So you became the role so perfectly that even you forgot it was a costume. But identity built on fear is not stability. It's tension disguised as character. It narrows who you're allowed to be until every emotion feels like betrayal. You apologize for crying, you justify joy, you ration softness as if it were sin. And beneath it all, you start confusing numbness with maturity, as though detachment were wisdom, as though not needing anyone were evolution. Yet every cage eventually rusts. The walls you built to feel safe begin to suffocate, because the more you try to be unbreakable, the further you drift from being human. Strength isn't the absence of weakness. It's the courage to exist without armor. And maybe it's time to remember what your skin feels like underneath all that steel. Pain taught you discipline. It gave you something to shape, something to control. You learned to turn heartbreak into ambition, anxiety into progress, emptiness into output. It felt noble to suffer silently and still deliver, to take what hurt and make it useful. That's how sublimation begins, transforming raw pain into structure. But over time, the transformation reverses. The structure starts feeding on the pain itself. You begin to need the pressure, the chaos, the endless proving. Not because it fulfills you, but because you no longer know who you are without it. Success stops tasting like relief. It becomes a sedative, a small hit of meaning before the emptiness returns. And soon, you're not chasing goals anymore. You're chasing the next moment you don't have to feel. It's a dangerous transaction, exchanging emotion for efficiency, self for function. People call it work ethic, but really it's grief, refined into productivity until it looks like purpose. That's why compliments feel hollow and rest feels wrong. You've mistaken performance for peace, and the applause, when it comes, doesn't land. It echoes through an empty theater you keep rebuilding every night. The truth is simple and cruel. You can't heal through the same mechanism that hides your wounds. What once saved you is now starving you. And the hardest part isn't stopping the work. It's admitting you built your worth from pain and started calling it progress. There's a moment when exhaustion stops feeling like fatigue and starts feeling like identity. You're not tired anymore. You're gone. It begins small. You silence a feeling to get through the day. You swallow frustration because someone needs you calm. You ignore sadness because it slows you down. And then one day, you realize you've been trimming pieces of yourself for years until what remains is functional, but not alive. This is psychic amputation, the quiet cutting away of everything that doesn't fit your performance. You've removed joy because it makes you vulnerable, anger because it scares people, longing because it feels pointless. What's left is an efficient ghost, disciplined, responsible, composed, but disconnected from its own pulse. You can't feel deeply without risking collapse, so you settle for control. You trade chaos for precision, passion for productivity, and the world calls it maturity. But something inside you remembers the color that used to live behind your eyes. It flickers in small moments, when you hear a song that once mattered, or smell rain on concrete. For a second, you feel almost human again. Then, the program resumes. The cruelest part of losing yourself is that no one notices. You've hidden the evidence behind competence, but your body knows. It aches for something you can't name, a reunion with the parts you exiled for survival. And until you learn to feel again, no achievement will ever feel like enough. Men are taught to turn pain into proof. Proof of endurance, proof of worth, proof that they can carry what others cannot. They are told that strength is silence, that discipline is dignity, that exhaustion is a badge of honor. So they keep walking through fire and call the burns character. But strength, when stripped of softness, becomes self-destruction disguised as resilience. You keep pushing, not because it works, but because stopping would mean admitting you're lost. You grind, you build, you endure, until every emotion feels like mutiny. You're praised for composure, rewarded for suppression. No one sees that composure is just collapse folded neatly. You function, therefore you exist. That's the masculine equation, and it's killing millions silently. When sadness surfaces, you drown it in work. When loneliness knocks, you answer with distraction. When fear whispers, you smother it under repetition. Everything becomes an act of resistance, not against the world, but against yourself. This isn't weakness, it's the cost of conditioning. You were never taught how to feel without falling apart, so you confuse numbness with control, and the grind becomes your only form of prayer. But the system that forged you has no exit. It doesn't reward healing, it rewards endurance. And the longer you survive inside it, the further you drift from being alive. The tragedy isn't that men break, it's that they break silently, and the world calls it success. The mind can lie, the mouth can lie, but the body never does. You can silence thoughts, distract feelings, rationalize exhaustion, yet your body keeps the original record, the tension in your jaw, the tightness in your chest. The migraines that arrive like unsent messages, they are all signals translated into pain because you've stopped listening in words. Stress was never meant to be permanent. It's a flare. A message, not a sentence, but when you ignore it long enough, the body stops whispering and begins to scream. Burnout, panic, insomnia, chronic fatigue. The diagnosis changes, but the message remains the same. You've been living against yourself. Every unexpressed emotion looks for a different exit. Anger becomes inflammation, grief becomes fatigue, fear becomes shallow breathing. Even your posture starts to confess what your words deny. It's not weakness, it's communication. Your body doesn't betray you, it tries to bring you home. Every ache, every tremor, every wave of anxiety is a fragment of your truth clawing its way back to awareness. You don't need to control these sensations, you need to decode them, because they aren't obstacles to healing, they are the language of healing. You've spent years mastering your thoughts, optimizing routines, perfecting productivity, but none of that matters if you're at war with the organism carrying you. Listen, your body has been telling the story your mind refused to narrate, and it's been speaking in the only way it knows how: pain. You keep telling yourself you missed it, the chance, the window, the version of you who could have made it. You replay choices like old footage, searching for the exact frame where life slipped away. But what if too late doesn't exist? The mind measures worth by clocks and milestones. It calls 25 too young, 30 too late, 40 irreversible. But the body doesn't know those numbers. It only knows presence or absence, aliveness or disconnection. And right now, you're still here. That's all reality requires to begin again. You are not behind, you are becoming. Every detour, every collapse, every false start, they weren't delays. They were rewrites. They were moments when the self you were could no longer contain who you were meant to become. Time doesn't punish you for being slow. It waits. It waits until your awareness catches up with your truth. The fear of being too late is just the ego mourning its old timeline. It grieves the fantasy of control, the version of you that had it all figured out. But life isn't a race. It's a series of awakenings disguised as failures. You can't be late to your own consciousness. Every breath you take is proof that existence hasn't given up on you yet. There is no finish line. There is only now. This fragile, unrepeatable intersection between what has been and what could still be. And maybe this is exactly where you were always meant to arrive. Isolation feels clean, predictable, safe. When you detach, no one can disappoint you. No chaos, no rejection, no unpredictable tides of emotion. Just silence, sterile, controlled, almost holy. But beneath that calm is decay. Disconnection masquerades as healing because it removes the noise, yet silence without contact doesn't restore you. It erases you. You stop arguing, not because you've found peace, but because you've stopped believing your voice matters. You stop reaching out, not because you trust yourself, but because you assume no one will understand. The illusion of control is intoxicating. You think, if I can just limit the world's access to me, I'll stop hurting. But the walls you build to keep pain out also keep life out. Joy, curiosity, intimacy, they can't reach you through the armor. Humans don't heal in isolation. They remember themselves in connection. But connection isn't found in endless conversation or shallow company. It begins internally, with honesty, with the willingness to meet the parts of yourself you've exiled. Disconnection gives you the illusion of power. Reconnection gives you the reality of presence. You don't need to open up to everyone. Just stop abandoning yourself. You've mistaken withdrawal for wisdom, solitude for strength. But real strength isn't hiding. It's showing up again after disappearing. Because the opposite of loneliness isn't company. It's belonging. And belonging begins when you stop trying to disappear. Presence isn't a gift. It's a practice. One the modern mind has forgotten how to perform. You've spent years living ahead of yourself, always thinking about what comes next, what could go wrong, what might redeem you. Your body sits in one place, while your mind runs marathons through imaginary futures. And somewhere along the way, you stopped noticing that you were still breathing. To be present is not to stop thinking. It's to notice that you are thinking. It's to feel the weight of your own breath in your chest, the pulse in your fingertips, the gravity of being here. When you stop resisting the moment, the noise softens. You begin to sense subtle things, warmth, rhythm, stillness. Reality feels less like a threat and more like a home you had forgotten you owned. You can't think your way into peace. You have to inhabit it. Presence is not about control. It's about surrendering the fantasy of control. Because once you stop trying to manage existence, you start participating in it. Healing doesn't happen when the past disappears. It happens when you stop trying to escape it. Presence isn't found in perfection. It's found in the willingness to witness yourself, even when it hurts. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply arriving in the only place that ever existed, now. And for the first time, you are here to feel it. You've spent a lifetime chasing more progress, more control, more proof that you matter. And yet every time you reach the next milestone, the hunger resets. It's not ambition, it's absence disguised as purpose. The illusion of not enough is the oldest wound of the human mind. It whispers that peace lives one achievement away, one job, one partner, one version of yourself that finally deserves rest. But the finish line keeps moving because the pursuit itself depends on your dissatisfaction. Enough isn't a quantity. It's a state of consciousness. It's the moment you stop treating yourself like a project to fix and start treating yourself like a life to inhabit. To feel enough doesn't mean to stop growing. It means to grow without self-hatred, to improve without contempt, to succeed without believing success will save you. Gratitude doesn't mean settling. Acceptance doesn't mean apathy. They mean clarity, seeing that what's missing isn't more, it's presence. You will still strive, still create, still dream, but no longer from emptiness. Because when enough becomes your baseline, everything else becomes expression, not compensation. You don't need to become someone extraordinary. You only need to remember that being alive is already miraculous. Enough is not a finish line. It's the quiet realization that you were never racing. You were never broken, only disconnected. You built an entire life around survival, mistaking motion for meaning, perfection for peace. But healing doesn't ask you to rebuild. It asks you to return. Return to your body, the first home you ever had. Return to your feelings, the ones you buried under performance. Return to the quiet pulse beneath the noise, the reminder that being alive is not something to achieve, but something to inhabit. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's only the torch you learn to ignite inside it. The same fire that once burned you now becomes what guides you home. Let this be the beginning, not of more striving, but of more seeing. Let the practice of being replace the obsession of becoming, because presence isn't waiting on the other side of success. It's breathing through you right now. And if this message found you here, it's because some part of you is ready, not to escape, but to awaken. So stay, listen, feel. You've spent enough time surviving your own mind. It's time to live in it. If this journey resonated with you, comment the word resilience and tell me what your greatest discovery was. Subscribe and enter the labyrinth. Your mind hides more than you know.